My son locked my bedroom door, shoved my clothes into tubs, and moved his wife into the very bed where I spent 35 years with my late husband. I ate alone at the dining table I bought with my first tax refund, while they laughed behind a locked door. They thought I'd shrink into the guest room, but the deed still carried my name. I could sell this house whenever I damn pleased. My son begged me, "Ma, if you could just sign the transfer, it would secure everything." And I looked him dead in the eye and said, "The only regret I have is raising a son who forgot what respect looks like." When the sheriff handed them the notice, Claire shouted, "You can't do this, this is our home." And I told her, "No, this was always my home. You were just guests who overstayed your welcome." I didn't just sell the house, I bought back myself, and I will never again be locked in the guest room of my own life.
Thank you for coming today and trusting us with your story. I believe our audience will take important lessons from it.
Sure.
My son told me the guest room was more comfortable for my age. That's the polite way he framed it. The truth? He locked my bedroom door, shoved my clothes into plastic tubs, and moved his wife into the very bed where I spent 35 years beside my late husband. That's how it began, with a lock, a lie, and a smile I'll never forget. My name is Margaret. I'm 74 years old. Widow, retired nurse. I bought this brick house in Cleveland with overtime pay and thrift store furniture. I scrubbed hospital floors between night shifts when the mortgage nearly swallowed me. I made lunches out of thin air when groceries ran short. I kept the lights on with second-hand uniforms and double shifts. Every corner of this house carries my sweat. So when my son Daniel and his wife Claire asked if they could stay just a few months to get on their feet, I said yes. That's what mothers do. We say yes, even when it's inconvenient, even when we know it might stretch us. At first it was fine. I cooked. They ate. I offered the guest room. They accepted. Claire complained about the mattress. I shrugged it off. But within weeks, the shift began. She started calling the master bedroom their space. She put candles on my dresser, makeup palettes where my Bible used to sit. And Daniel, he nodded along like a schoolboy carrying her backpack. One evening, I came home from church to find my bedroom door locked. A silver keypad gleamed where a knob used to be. My heart sank. My wedding quilt, the one stitched by my mother's own hands, was gone from the bed. My clothes were stacked in the hallway like donations waiting for pickup. I knocked, no answer. I knocked again, harder. Finally, Daniel opened the door just a crack. His voice was sheepish. "Ma, it's temporary. Claire's back has been acting up. You'll be more comfortable in the guest room anyway." Comfortable? That word cut sharper than any scalpel I'd ever held. The guest room was drafty. The heater busted years ago. The mattress sagged in the middle, coils digging into my hips. I lay awake that night staring at the peeling wallpaper, listening to Claire's laugh echo from the master bedroom. My bedroom, my husband's bedroom. I tried to swallow it. I'd swallowed worse. Because that's what my life has been. Swallowing pain so Daniel could rise. When he wanted to study engineering, I drained my retirement account to cover tuition. When he wrecked his first car, I sold my mother's jewelry to help him buy another. When his credit score tanked, I co-signed the loan that salvaged his finances. Every sacrifice, I made it quietly, never asked for repayment. I thought love was repayment enough. But love wasn't enough for them. Claire treated me like a tenant in my own house. She criticized my cooking, my furniture, even the way I folded towels. "Daniel likes them in thirds," she'd sneer, refolding in front of me. She drank wine from my crystal glasses, the ones I only ever used for Christmas dinner, and left lipstick stains that never washed out. One Sunday I cooked pot roast, Daniel's childhood favorite. Claire wrinkled her nose. "Too heavy, we'll order Thai." They ate in the bedroom with the door shut. I ate alone at the dining table I bought with my first tax refund, staring at two empty chairs that should have held gratitude. The worst came 2 weeks later. I found my wedding photos shoved into a plastic bin in the basement, dust settling on my husband's army medals. Claire had turned the dining room into her home office, complete with a ring light and camera tripod. She filmed makeup tutorials while my family history sat forgotten under leaking pipes. I confronted Daniel. He shifted in his seat, eyes darting away. "Ma, Claire's building a brand, it's important." "And my memories, my life, are they not important?" He didn't answer. Silence. Silence is its own betrayal. That night, I decided to stop pretending. I didn't raise Daniel to be cruel. I raised him to be strong, to be respectful, to know the value of sacrifice. But he had chosen her entitlement over my dignity. They thought I'd shrink into the guest room. They thought I'd age quietly, collecting dust like the photographs Claire boxed away. But they forgot one thing. The deed still carried my name. The first step in reclaiming power is remembering you still have it. The next morning, I visited the county clerk's office. I pulled a copy of the deed, the title, the tax receipts, all in my name, Margaret Ann Foster. Daniel's name was nowhere on them, neither was Claire S. I tucked those papers into a folder and carried them to my lawyer, Mr. Langley, a man who'd helped me rewrite my will after my husband passed. He looked over the documents, tapped his pen against the table, and said 9 words that sparked fire in my chest. "You can sell this house whenever you damn please." I leaned back in the chair, exhaling the years of silence I had carried. "Good," I said, "because I'm ready." But before I signed a thing, I watched. I stopped cooking dinners, stopped cleaning after them, stopped folding towels in thirds. Claire noticed first. She muttered to Daniel, loud enough for me to hear, "Your mother," finally realizing she's not needed. Not needed, that phrase stung, but it also fueled me. They filled the house with noise, Claire's sisters visiting, music blasting, wine bottles clinking. I kept quiet, sitting in the guest room, crocheting by the drafty window. They mistook my silence for weakness. One night, I overheard them whispering. "She'll give in soon," Claire said. "We'll get her to sign the transfer." "Transfer?" Daniel asked. "Yes, she can't live alone forever. If she signs the deed over, we'll finally have stability. This house will be ours." Daniel hesitated. Then, "You're right, it's time she passed it down." Passed it down, like I was already dead. That's when my decision hardened into steel. They wanted the house. Fine, I'd give it away, but not to them. I started moving quietly, gathered my documents, met with Mr. Langley again. He connected me to a realtor who specialized in fast cash sales. A week later, an investor toured the property. He didn't care about the clutter, the ring lights, the wine stains. He cared about square footage and location. He offered full cash, no inspection, no contingencies. I accepted. The papers were drawn, the deposit was wired, and I didn't say a word. Not yet. Because revenge tastes better when it's served legal. I packed a small suitcase with essentials. My husband's pocket watch, my Bible with notes scribbled in the margins, 2 photo albums, and my mother's quilt. Everything else, the furniture, the dishes, the rugs, I left. One evening, Claire breezed into the guest room, wine glass in hand. "Why are you packing?" "Making room," I said evenly. "Feels like things are shifting." She smirked, assuming victory. "Good, I've been thinking about turning this space into a nursery." Nursery? She wanted to raise a child in the very room where she imprisoned the grandmother. I didn't flinch, just folded another sweater into my bag and thought, "You'll be gone before the paint dries." The closing date was set for 3 weeks later. I asked Mr. Langley to arrange delivery of the eviction notice on a Sunday morning, mid-brunch, when Claire's hair would be curled and Daniel's guard would be down. "Are you sure?" he asked. "I want them dressed for the occasion," I said. He nodded, "Consider it done." Until then, I carried on like nothing changed. Watered my roses, read the paper, attended church. Daniel barely looked at me anymore. Claire posted photos online with captions like "Our dream home, finally ours." They had no idea. I went asleep in that cold guest room smiling for the first time in months. Because while they thought they'd buried me under silence, I was already digging them a grave made of paperwork. The week before the papers were due to close, I stopped playing polite. No more small talk at the dinner table. No more nodding when Claire bragged about her brand partnerships or when Daniel went on about his plans to renovate their suite. I let the silence sit heavy. That silence was the only power I had left inside those walls, and it unsettled them. Claire tried to bait me. One evening, she waltzed into the kitchen wearing my old satin robe. My robe, the one I wore on the last Christmas morning I spent with my husband before cancer took him. She swirled her wine glass and said, "Oh, this fits better on me than it ever did on you." I didn't blink. I just reached for the kettle, poured my tea, and walked out. She laughed behind me, but her laugh was thin. Daniel, on the other hand, started showing cracks. He'd sit at the table late into the night with bills spread across the surface. His credit card statements stacked, red notices peeking out. He whispered to Claire about money, about deadlines, about the mortgage payments he couldn't afford. Mortgage payments I had always handled, taxes I had always paid. Now it was his turn to realize what carrying a house really meant. But I didn't interrupt. I didn't rescue him, not this time. I remember the Thursday before the closing. Claire threw a brunch for her sisters. They filled my living room with perfume and laughter, sipping mimosas on my couch. I sat quietly on the porch, crocheting. Then I heard it, Claire's voice, sharp and smug. Once she signs the deed over, this house is mine. I'll rip up that ugly rose garden and put in a pool. Her sister giggled. What about the old lady? Claire's tone dripped sugar. Retirement homes exist for a reason. She'll get used to it. I clenched my yarn so tight the thread snapped. A pool over my roses. Over the very ground where I buried my dog, where my husband planted tulips the year we married. That was the moment I stopped feeling sad. I felt steel instead. The realtor called the next day. Closing is set for Monday. Sheriff's notice will be delivered Sunday at 10 a.m. sharp. I could have shouted hallelujah right there in the kitchen. Instead, I simply said, thank you. Friday night, Daniel knocked on my door, my guest room door. I didn't answer right away. I wanted him to stand there, to feel what it was like to wait outside your own mother's space. When I finally opened, his eyes were red, like he hadn't slept. Ma, can we talk? I leaned against the frame. Talk. He rubbed the back of his neck. I know things have been rough. Claire, she just wants us to build a future. Maybe we've pushed too hard, but if you could just sign the transfer, it would secure everything. For all of us. The nerve, asking me to hand him the knife he'd already stabbed me with. I folded my arms. Daniel, I nursed men who'd been shot, burned, broken. I watched them heal. You know what never healed? Betrayal. That's the wound that festers. He swallowed hard. So that's it, you won't help me. I helped you your whole life. This house is mine, and soon it won't be yours either. He frowned. What do you mean? I shut the door in his face, let him wonder. Saturday came like a drum roll. Claire pranced around, setting the table for another brunch. She wore my pearl earrings, the ones my husband saved 2 years for. I didn't say a word. Daniel avoided me entirely, eyes glued to his phone. Maybe he sensed the storm. Maybe he thought I'd crack at the last minute. But I had already signed the contract. The sale was sealed. Sunday morning arrived with sunlight and birdsong. I woke early, put on my best white blouse, and brewed a pot of tea. The guest room felt warmer that day, not because the heater worked, it didn't, but because my heart finally did. At exactly 10 a.m., the knock came. Not a soft knock, a knock that carries authority. I stayed seated at the kitchen table, tea steaming in front of me. Daniel opened the door in sweatpants. Claire followed, still in a silk robe. The sheriff stood there, tall and stone-faced, with an envelope in hand. Beside him was Mr. Langley, briefcase polished, smile sharp. Notice of sale, the sheriff said, handing the envelope to Daniel. Claire squinted. What's this? Daniel tore it open, his face drained pale. She sold the house. Claire snatched the papers. What do you mean she sold the house? I took a slow sip of tea. Exactly what it says. Cash buyer, closing finalized tomorrow, you have 30 days to vacate. Claire's jaw dropped. You can't do this, this is our home. I stood then, steady as the oak tree out back. No, this was always my home, you were guests who overstayed their welcome. Daniel stammered. Ma, please, we have nowhere to go. You had plenty of chances. You locked me out of my own bedroom, you boxed up my life, you called me a burden, and now you'll learn what burden feels like. Claire's face twisted. You're cruel. I leaned forward, eyes steady. No, I'm just done being quiet. They didn't say much after that, just stood frozen as neighbors peeked out from behind curtains, pretending not to stare. Claire slammed the bedroom door. Daniel paced the hall like a boy who'd lost his homework. Me, I finished my tea in peace. The rest of that week was a spectacle. Claire stomped around the house, slamming cabinets, cursing under her breath. Daniel made phone calls, begging friends for loans, for favors. No one came through. I kept my routine, morning walks, afternoon tea, evening prayer. They were unraveling while I was studying. By Friday, Claire had stopped speaking to me entirely. She barricaded herself in the master bedroom, shades drawn. Daniel shuffled around like a ghost, avoiding my eyes. I almost felt pity, almost. Saturday night, I cooked one last meal in that kitchen. Fried chicken, mashed potatoes, green beans, my husband's favorites. I didn't do it for them. I did it for myself, for closure. Daniel hovered in the doorway, eyes on the food. "You're really going through with this?" "Yes." "You'll regret it." I looked him straight in the eye. The only regret I have is raising a son who forgot what respect looks like. He didn't answer. He just walked away, shoulders slumped. Monday came, closing day. I met Mr. Langley at the title office. We signed the last documents. The buyer wired the funds. Just like that, I was no longer the owner of the house. But I wasn't sad. Not for a second. Because the house had stopped being mine the day Daniel handed Claire my bedroom key. What I own now was peace. That afternoon, I went to the bank. The cashier slid a check across the counter, more money than I'd ever held in my life. I didn't smile at the number. I smiled at what it meant: freedom. I walked out into the sunlight with a new plan. I had already picked out a 2-bedroom condo across town, near the senior center, walking distance to the park. No stairs for my knees, no locks I couldn't open. I put down the deposit in cash, closed within a week. And when I carried my small suitcase across that new threshold, I felt 20 years younger. I didn't tell Daniel where I moved. He called once, left a voicemail, "Ma, you went too far." I deleted it. Claire sent a message on Facebook calling me toxic. I reported it as harassment. I wasn't carrying their poison anymore. But a week later, my granddaughter Lily found me, Daniel's daughter from his first marriage. She showed up at my new doorstep with her backpack and big brown eyes. "Grandma, can I visit?" I hugged her so tight I thought my ribs would crack. "Baby, you can stay as long as you want." That night we cooked pasta together. We listened to jazz on the radio. We laughed, real laughter, the kind that heals. And as I tucked her into the spare room, I whispered, "This will always be your home too." Because while I lost a son to his greed, I gained back a granddaughter through truth. 2 weeks after moving into my new condo, I finally slept without waking at every creak. No heels stomping overhead, no muffled laughter behind a locked door, no wine glasses clinking in my kitchen. Just quiet. Real, honest quiet. Peace doesn't arrive like a parade. It slips in like a stray cat, curling against your ankles, soft and steady. That's what I felt every night in my new bed. But peace didn't mean the story was finished. It wasn't long before I heard from the old neighborhood. Word travels fast in Cleveland. A neighbor called to say Daniel and Claire had packed up and left before the 30-day deadline was even close. Apparently, Claire couldn't stand the whispers, the looks from people who knew they'd been served by the sheriff in broad daylight. Pride is heavy when you're not strong enough to carry it. They ended up in some rental on the other side of town. Small, noisy, nothing like the house they thought they'd stolen. Claire posted bitter messages online about fake family and toxic mothers. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Because revenge had already been written in ink, notarized, and filed with the county. Lily started visiting me every weekend. She'd been living mostly with her mother since the divorce, but Claire's attitude made her uncomfortable. "They don't notice when I'm there," she said one evening while we watered the mint plant on my balcony. I looked at her, this girl on the cusp of womanhood, and thought about all the ways silence had harmed me. "Baby," I said, "you will never be invisible in this home. Do you understand?" She nodded, eyes shining. That was the kind of legacy I wanted. Not money, not property, but dignity passed down like an heirloom. Still, Daniel lingered like a bruise. One Sunday after church, he showed up. I was on the porch, pruning my rose bush. He looked smaller than I remembered, shoulders hunched, eyes heavy. "Ma," he said quietly, "can we talk?" I didn't invite him in. I stayed where I was, hands steady on the shears. He cleared his throat. "Claire and I split. She said things she can't take back. I lost everything." I clipped a dead stem, let it fall to the ground. "No, Daniel, you lost me." He flinched like I'd slapped him. "I know I hurt you. I thought I was doing the right thing, keeping Claire happy, building a future. But I see now I erased you. I'm sorry." For a moment, the boy I once raised flickered in his face. The boy who clung to me during storms, who cried when he scraped his knees, who whispered, "Thank you, Ma," after every meal. But that boy had made choices. Choices that chained me to a drafty guest room and stripped me of dignity. I took a slow breath. I don't hate you, Daniel. Hate burns the hand that holds it, but forgiveness isn't free. If you want it, you'll have to earn it day by day with actions, not words. He nodded, tears in his eyes. "I'll try." "Then start by standing tall for your daughter. She deserves a father who doesn't vanish when someone else demands the throne." That was all I said. I turned back to my roses. He left without another word. Weeks passed. My life began to feel mine again. I joined a senior walking group at the park, volunteered at the community center, helping with estate planning workshops for women over 60. You'd be surprised how many faces looked like mine, lined with years of sacrifice, shadowed with betrayal by the very children they raised. I told them my story, not every detail but enough, and when I spoke, heads nodded. Some eyes welled up. They understood. We carried the same scars. After one session, a woman hugged me and whispered, "You gave me permission to fight for myself." That meant more than the sale price of the house, because what's wealth if you still live small? One evening, Lily helped me hang fairy lights on the balcony. We sat under the glow, sipping lemonade. "Grandma," she asked, "do you think Dad really means it, about changing?" I looked at her, the granddaughter who had seen too much, who carried the weight of adults' mistakes on her small shoulders. "I think he regrets it," I said softly. "And sometimes regret is all people have to offer. But you and I, we don't build our lives on regret, we build them on truth." She nodded, satisfied, and leaned her head on my shoulder. Months slipped by, seasons changed. My condo grew into a home. I bought fresh linens, painted the walls pale yellow, planted herbs in pots along the balcony. Every choice was mine, every corner free of mockery. Daniel came around from time to time, not often, but enough to show he was trying. He started attending counseling. He picked Lily up for lunch instead of making excuses. I kept my distance, but I saw small steps. I didn't let him back in fully, not yet. Some doors stay cracked, never wide open. That's the cost of betrayal. But I didn't close the door entirely either, because I'd rather leave a sliver of light than live in total darkness. One Saturday, the community center hosted a fundraiser. Mr. Langley introduced me to a group of women starting a housing fund for widows and seniors who'd been pushed out of their homes. He smiled and said, "Margaret, you inspired this." I nearly cried. Instead, I pulled out my checkbook and pledged the first 5 donations. Not because I was rich, but because I knew the pain of having your sanctuary stolen. That night, I felt lighter than I had in decades. Like every sacrifice, every insult, every locked door had led me here, to a place where my story wasn't just survival. It was fuel. The final chapter came quietly. Daniel showed up at a church fish fry one summer evening. No Claire, just him. He walked across the lot with a plate of fried catfish, looking like a man who'd been stripped down to bone. He stopped in front of me. "Ma," he said, voice low, "I'm still trying." I looked at him for a long time. The son who once called me a burden. The man who watched his wife wear my robe, eat in my bed, laugh at my memories. And yet, here he was, humbled. I didn't reach out, I didn't scold. I simply said, "Keep trying, that's all you can do now." He nodded, tears brimming, and walked away. That night, I stood on my balcony with Lily beside me. The mint plant was thriving. The rose bush had 4 new blooms. The fairy lights glowed soft against the twilight. "Grandma," Lily whispered, "will you ever let Dad move back in?" I sipped my tea, breathing in the calm air. I let go of the house, I let go of the fight, but my peace, that has to be earned. No one moves back into that. She smiled, holding a spare key I'd given her. "At least I'll always have a place here." "Yes, baby," I said, kissing her forehead. "Always." Because that's what this whole battle was about. Not rooms, not deeds, not revenge. It was about proving something simple. I was not disposable. I was not invisible. I would never again be locked in the guest room of my own life. And as I looked up at the stars, tea warm in my hands, I realized I hadn't just sold a house. I'd bought back myself,